Hi everybody, it's Franny, and today we're going to be tackling a few maintenance tasks on the i8. Alright, so what we're going to be doing today is we've got three things we want to do. We've got an engine air filter we need to do. We need to replace the door struts on the car and also the cabin air filter. Now, I had hoped to get a fourth project done. That was these guys here, these blue seat belts, in this episode, but it turned out it's just too much footage for one episode. So we're going to do that as a separate episode, the next episode. So if you want to see the swap out of these seat belts, you're going to want to stay tuned for that. All right, well, let's get started with our first project, and that's going to be our engine air filter. So we have to get to the engine. It's underneath here. So we need to just start taking off these covers. These guys turn just a quarter turn like that, and you can pop this off and pull this away. Next is just this styrofoam bit here. It's just basically sitting on top of there. It's just a sound deadening piece. Our next step is to remove this big metal plate access cover here. There's just a series of thumb screws to get this thing off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. With those off, our plate just lifts up, and there's two little tabs in the back. We just pull it straight back. All right, there we go. For this next part, it's actually easier, for me at least, to sit in the, well, they call it a trunk back here, this little opening back here. And then I can get to this air box pretty easily. So it's pretty simple. We have two clips, one on each side that we need to release. We also need to release the wiring harness to the mass airflow sensor and then loosen up the clamp on the air intake that goes into the air box. To do the clamps, pretty simple. It's just a 7mm nut driver just to loosen this clamp up a little bit. Now, the connector for the mass airflow sensor is a little weird. What you have to do is take a small screwdriver like this, and right underneath this gray flange here, we're just going to pop this up, bink, like that, and you kind of hear it pop. And then you want to push it sort of towards the connector itself to release it, and then work it up, and boom, it pops right off. Let's screw our two clips down here. One on this side and one on this side. All right, we should be able to pull this off. There we go. We'll lift this guy up, and the air filter should stay in the box, actually. Okay, and we just sort of slide it towards the center of the car here. We have a couple of pins here on the back that are connecting back down here in the back. So that's why there's no clips in the back. So there's sort of pins for a hinge is really what these guys are. So as you pull this up a little bit, you want to sort of rotate it up a little bit and pull it towards the center of the car. We can pull out our old air filter element here. Okay, let's take a look at that. Yeah, it's pretty dirty, huh? Holy cow, huh? Pretty dirty. Now also, the inside of our air box down here is quite dirty as well. So what we're going to do is clean this thoroughly. I'm going to vacuum it and we'll just spruce this up. It'll look great. Just as a compare of the old filter here versus the new filter, look at the difference there, huh? Our next step is just to refit our new clean air filter back in the box. There we go, goes in just like that. We've got our nice clean top here, so we'll go ahead and refit that as well. Remember, we've got these pins here that we need to get in underneath the little clips back here. So you got to kind of work this guy in, maybe stick your hand back here and make sure it's seating properly back there. Make sure you don't have this happening there. Can you see the little rubber there sort of squirting out on the side? We want to make sure that gets in underneath the cover properly. So let's work that a little bit. I think we're pinned well. We can drop our cover down. This is a little bit fiddly here, huh? All right, we work that in. Notice we've got a nice even gap along here, so that looks good. We can feel around, make sure that our air filter isn't squirting out anywhere. Looks good. All right, and we can pop our clips back on at this point. That one on that side and this one over here on this side. So the trick to those is to, instead of pushing on the top, push on the base of it, sort of the center of it, halfway down its length, and it'll splay out a little bit and be much easier to get on. All right, great. We can put our tube back on here. There it goes. Make sure it fits all the way up, all the way. There it is. We can tighten up our clamp at this point. Just make sure it's sitting properly all the way around as you're tightening it. This is where I love the nut drivers. They're just so much easier to work with than a screwdriver. One final check under there and make sure our clamp is where it needs to be. Seems fine. Go ahead and tighten that down. Just snug it in. There we go. Finally, we've got our connector here for our mass airflow sensor. We just pop that guy back on, and don't forget to push the little gray tab back down. And that's that. And so finally, all that's left is just to replace the covers on here. So our metal cover, then our turn screws, and then we put our styrofoam bit on the top, and then finally the final dress cover over the top, locking in our 2 little quarter turn locks on this diagonal here. Our next task is going to be to install our door struts. Now I want to show you the end here, specifically this socket joint up here and the little retainer clip for it. We can see our retainer clip is going all the way around the outside of the socket there. But the important bit is this one that goes all the way inside here and goes all the way through to hold the ball in. So what we're going to do to prep these is to remove these clips first so that when we go to put it on the car, we can just go and put these guys on and then reattach these clips. Now you want to be kind of careful getting these things off. They're under a little bit of pressure and they can kind of go everywhere. So the best way is just sort of get your finger on it and push them around and see how they bulge up like that. But just keep a handle on it because you don't want it to fly off. And then on the other side here, we're just going to pull this out. There we go. There you go. So now the clip is out and we can set that little clip guy aside. And now our socket is ready to be installed. Want to remember to remove them from both sides because it's the same on both sides. So we'll remove both clips on each one of our struts. With our struts all prepped, let's get to the car and remove the existing ones. Obviously, we're going to have that same clip, so we'll just pop those clips off, pull the old struts out, put the new ones on, reinstall our little clips, and that's pretty much all there is to it. We're ready to swap out our strut on the car. I've got my lovely assistant Heidi here to help out. We don't want the door come crashing down when we pull this strut out. All right, so there's a few things we have to do to prep this strut to get it off, and I'll show you that. The first thing we want to do is take a look at the orientation of this strut. Now the big part is at the top and the little one's at the bottom, and there's also a mark up here that says top and an arrow pointing up. So you just don't want to install it in upside down. Our next step, just like we did to prep our new strut, we're going to pull these little teeny weeny little clips that we had here that are holding the strut on. So we're going to pull those off so that we can get the entire strut off. All right, same as before, we're just going to pull this guy around and then work it up, realizing that this pin's going to go in the back, so it's going to be a little bit hard to see. We've got Heidi holding the door for us just in case it pops open. All right, so pull this one around. You just want to hold on to these guys. Boy, they really want to go flying. So there we go. All right, we're set. We can pull our old strut off now. Well, we're still under a little bit of pressure, so I'm going to use a plastic tool to pry it off the bottom. There it goes. Pop. Okay. So let's come off on the bottom. There we go.
Yep.
Heidi's got the door.
I do.
We'll just pop it off here on top. Now there's a little metal clip inside here as well, so that's also holding it on. So just be ready for that. No? Is it pretty heavy?
Yeah.
So Heidi says that the door is a little heavy, just so you know. All right, now the next thing we want to do is we want to clean these balls. We don't want any old grease on there or any old dirt that's on there. And this one up here as well. Now I wouldn't expect these little balls to be too overly worn, but now's a great time to check them. You really don't want any play in them. They look fine here. They look pretty smooth. This one at the top here does seem to have some small marks on it, but I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be fine. Now I did end up in the end putting a little additional dollop of grease in there. I just think that what was in there is a little thin actually. And when I took the old ones off, it looked like they had a bit more grease in them. Pop this in on the top. There it goes. You want to hear that click? And then down on the bottom here. All right, there we go. With our struts in, and the balls inside the sockets here, next step is to replace our retaining clips. These are going to be a little bit weird, but you want to find the hole in the back here and make sure it goes all the way in and then all the way through at the top. Now with the pin all the way up and all the way through, we can spin it around here and latch it. There we go. We're good here. Well, that took a bit of finagling to get that little guy in. You just kind of have to work it around. It's got a second hole it must go through, and it's the other hole on the other end of the ball here. So it comes in from the bottom, goes straight through, and it needs to protrude that through that hole at the other end of the ball. And it's just a little hard to get it kind of lined up. All right, well, this one's all set. Go ahead and push our clip in. Lock it in, looks great. Grease that we see out here, we don't want because that will just collect dirt, so we'll just wipe any of that off. All right, well that's it. Our strut is in, we're all good here. Let's go ahead and actuate it. Go ahead and close the door, open it up and make sure it's working properly. We're gonna have Heidi go ahead and close the door and reopen it and see how we did. How's it feel? Does it feel good?
Definitely stiff for you.
Oh, good, okay. There you go, then opening the door, and let it go. Oh my gosh, look at that. It goes way up fast and look at it go all the way. Well, that looks like that made a big difference. Boy, it came up pretty fast, huh, Heidi?
Yeah, it definitely made a difference.
Okay. All right, well, if you're looking for a little more in-depth discussion on how to actually replace these struts, I ate Pat from Pat's Garage, went ahead and did an entire episode on that. And he's very detailed with it, and it's great. So if you really want more detail on it, go out and check out his video. All right, well, we're gonna move over to the other side, replace the other one real quick like a bunny, and this bit of the project's going to be done. Our next task is going to be to swap out the cabin air filter. It's going to require a little bit of car yoga, I think, because it's up underneath the passenger footwell here in a slot all the way in the back. So it's going to be a little bit of a thing to get to. It's not the end of the world, just kind of a weird position to get into. Now, one of the things you have to be careful of is that these filters do have an airflow on them. So they're directional. So you want to make sure that you get the direction going the proper way. There it says airflow with little arrows going up there. Now these filters, they actually look really dirty. Doesn't that look, looks terrible, doesn't it? This is a brand new filter. And the reason it looks like that, of course, is it's filled with carbon. So expect to see that sort of black. These things probably should be swapped out pretty much every other year. Kind of depends on the contaminants and such. But the carbon will just fill up with crap and then it's really not very useful anymore. So that's why we're swapping it out. Should be a fairly straightforward thing. Let's see how it goes. Our two torque bits are here and then also over here as well. All right, let's get those two torque bit screws out and get this bottom panel off. This is our little twisty guy here, just a quarter turn, and it should sort of, or half turn or whatever, there it goes. And it does come out. All right, we just pull our piece out here. Now it's also set in a little bit over here as well. So getting this guy out just kind of takes a little bit of fussing and finagling to get this thing out. There we go, just sort of drop it. I pulled this piece out a little bit and dropped straight down. Next we've got our little light here, so we'll just pull the connector on this guy. There we go, just pull straight out. Now we can remove this entire piece. All right, so what we do is we pull down on this upper tab that's up here. There it goes, you heard a little pop. And then we just slide this guy here, this way. We just slide it. There we go, pop, and that's it. At this point, we can go ahead and pull our filter down. There it goes. It kind of has to travel a little towards the outside of the car, it looks like, just to get it out. All right. Now, this is the way it came out of the car. So we've got a lighter side here and a darker side here, but what's more important are the arrows on this side. Now, this is curious. if we take a look at this, there is an arrow here, but it says front of vehicle, whereas our new filter, which is an aftermarket filter, actually just has a flow. Another thing to note on this was that you look at the difference between the two sides. Now, this was the side that's pointing forward, and this was the side pointing backward, and notice these glue ridges here as well. So let's take a look at our new filter, and our new filter here at the bottom here is set up the same way. See the glue beads down it, and then on the back side, nothing on it. So that gives me some confidence that this part here with the glue beads should point towards the front of the car. All right, well, lining up the arrows on the end here, they're both pointing in the same direction. So we've got the bit here with the rubber glue holding it together, and then the other side that doesn't have anything on it. This is our new filter. This is our original filter, the one that came out of the car. And the arrows, I don't know if you can see, the arrows here are both pointing up in this example. So it looks like the airflow and the front of the vehicle are the same. All right, let's go ahead and install it. We'll just put it in exactly the way the original was, and I think we'll be in good shape. All right, here we go. Feed this guy up in there. It's just getting kind of stuck a little bit, but there we go. Okay, there we go. Now our bottom cover here has little tabs on each side, so obviously the filter's going to go in between those two. We can see these little tabs here are also going to go in these slots right here. Just push it up, and then we're going to slide it towards the center of the car to lock it in place. Make sure it sits in all the way so that we can slide it towards the center of the car until this upper clip here goes snap-a-doodle. There it goes, snap-a-doodle. All right, and we are in. With our new filter in, we just have to replace our little bottom cover here. All right, well, that is our cabin filter replaced. The only thing that kind of gave me any trouble was I didn't quite have the filter all the way up, so I pulled it down a little bit, kind of worked it a little bit and pushed it up. It should seat all the way up. It shouldn't be sticking down. All right, well, the rest of it was pretty straightforward, and I'm glad I got that done. Well, that worked out pretty well. We got all of our projects done. We got our engine air filter done. We got our door struts done, and our cabin air filter. So there's just one more thing to do, and that's those seat belts we talked about. That's coming up in the next episode. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that now. Hit the little bell next to it so you get notified every time we upload a video, because you're not going to want to miss that. Also, we're working on our Porsche 3.2 Carrera as well. It's kind of an ongoing long series, and you just don't want to miss any of that content because it's awesome as well. All right, well, thank you so much for watching, and as always, a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. Okay, well, until next time, safe travels. Bye.